What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. Make sure you go to coinmastery.com/invest. Join the newsletter, get some free PDF downloads, lots of good information, especially if you're just getting started in crypto or if you know someone who's just getting started, send it to them. Hope you all had a great weekend. Happy Martin Luther King Day for anybody in the United States. Very special day in our country. And happy Bitcoin coming back a little bit day. Is that a day? Let's make it a day. Well, if you're new here, welcome. We're doing daily Monday through Friday videos all about not only cryptocurrency and this incredible revolution and opportunity, but we're talking about how to make better decisions so that you all wake up in 3 years from now and have capitalized on this as best as you possibly could in the way you want. And maybe that's making money. Maybe that's changing the world. Maybe that's, I don't know, whatever it is you want. Interesting things happening over the last few days, and we're starting to see a transition. We're going to talk a little bit about the Bitcoin, Litecoin, and NEO specifically. There's an emerging trend with these protocols that I think you guys are going to not only notice, but I think is an opportunity for some people, for anybody actually. We're talking about what's going on with the general markets themselves. We're talking about what's going on in South Korea as that unfolds, and then a few other macro interesting trends that I'm seeing. Just a quick wrap up from last week. A couple of the big themes that I talked about, at least in my opinion, right? Like none of this is financial advice. Let's be super clear about that. The first is that while Bitcoin and Litecoin and Ethereum, I mean really anything at the top, is kind of going sideways. It's what I would consider boring. And these other coins, like all these altcoins, ICOs, are just screaming through gains. Often that's the time that you want to be buying up the boring stuff. And it's very hard to do. It's very counterintuitive because you see everybody on Twitter and YouTube and Reddit and Telegram, wherever you hang out, talking about how much money they're making. So I believe, and I still believe this, that these bigger coins, Bitcoin, Litecoin, especially, and we're starting to see a little bit with Ethereum, are really just gaining steam to do another huge run. Whether they go down a little bit more before then, I don't know, but I always like the coins that I know are winners, that people are less likely to buy because they think it's boring. And that's really what we're seeing with Bitcoin. So I'm on the 1 day. Let's go down to the 4 hour. We've been looking at the Fibonacci retracement. I think it's just helpful to keep looking at this each day. And you can see last week, at the end of last week, we hit that 50% or that 50% line, whatever you want to call it. And now we're coming back. So the next line, at least from this chart, is going to be right around the 14.4 level. That's going to be the 38% line. And what we wanted to do is break through that. So you can see we tried to break through over here. I guess, let's see, that was on the 13th, this was Saturday. And you can see how there was some natural resistance there. No surprise. Came back down. Now we're going to go after it again. You're probably going to see this thing try to test that line again. And what you want to see it do is blow through that line. All right. If we see that, that's a very good sign. If not, you're probably going to see it retrace. And maybe there's a bigger retracement the next time. But fingers crossed, this thing pops right through there in the next day or so. So that's what we're keeping an eye on. And Bitcoin is just a boring big asset, at least that's the story being told right now for investors. And that does not compete nearly as well as going on something like KuCoin or Binance and seeing coin go up 80% a day. The average person is looking at crypto as a way to get rich. I shouldn't say the average person. A majority of retail investors, even if they originally weren't in it for that, in the last 4 weeks, they are starting to entertain those thoughts because they're seeing so many people getting just ridiculous returns, and it's really hard. It's really not hard not to try to go after that. So that's why I still like Bitcoin. I'm still holding. My big reserves are all in the big coins. Similarly, with Litecoin, we're seeing the same sort of action, this sideways, I wouldn't even call it an accumulation phase. It's a huge horizontal pattern. I mean, you could draw a pretty sweet triangle right there if you drew the longer term trend lines. But Litecoin, man, this thing it's going to crush it this year. I don't know for sure. I don't have any info about this. But of all the coins, when you look at this over the long term and you look at how these things accumulate, how they do runs, how it relates to Bitcoin, the tech, the story, the market cap, the influence, it's got a lot of juice behind it. Whether or not you like Litecoin or not, it's hard to deny that. And the problem is most people look at this and they're like, man, why would I settle for 3% gains today when I could potentially roll the dice and get 100% gains tomorrow? And I'm telling you, that's the more you play that, the longer you play that game, the more likely you are to lose. It's just like being in a casino. If you keep betting against a house that is designed to take money from you, which is what markets do, eventually it will take all your money. So something to keep in mind. I like Litecoin. There's some news coming out. I should say rumors coming out, which I have not confirmed any of them, so I'm not going to talk about them. But I will say I like Litecoin. I'm interested in Litecoin. I've been buying a lot of Litecoin. Now, I think the bigger story for the weekend is what a lot of people may have been seeing, which is NEO, formerly called AntShares, for anybody who's been in the game for at least a year or so. AntShares, when it was back down at like 50 cents or so, which is pretty crazy to think about now that it's at like 160 something. But in Bitcoin terms, 1.2 million Satoshis, which is really how traders measure wins in crypto. But the reason this is happening is the exact same thing that happened to Ethereum the last spring, early summer, which is when you have a massive amount of use cases, massive amount of transaction volume around a particular coin, the price goes up like crazy. Last spring for Ethereum, it was tons of ICOs. Right now, it's also tons of ICOs, but the ICOs are on the NEO protocol. Okay, so you got to buy NEO to be able to put it into the ICO to be able to participate. And through that, it naturally just drives the price up because everybody just needs the NEO to be a part of that ecosystem. And so there's a little bit of this is when you get into some people, especially Bitcoin maximalists who look at something like Ethereum and they think it's just a big Ponzi scheme because of this type of thinking. It's like you got to buy it to go buy apps that are on top of that protocol to drive the price up. And then for that price to keep going up, you just need to build out the protocol. But I don't really see it that way. I see it. That's kind of how any ecosystem works, where you got to have a base currency or a base token of some level in order to power the entire network. That's really what network capitalism is. Same thing is happening with NEO. So for you, the average investor, the retail investor, I shouldn't say average. Many of you are above average. These are this is a very obvious and clear opportunity to be able to look at the time horizon, especially for ICOs, and say how many ICOs are coming out in the next month on which protocols. Like, is it on NEO? Is it on Stellar? Is it on Ethereum? Is it on Qtum, Quantum, whatever you want to call it? Which are getting the ICOs and which ones have the most hype? And if there was a calculator that I could give you guys that would show you exactly what this was, I would give it to you. But because there's no calculator, that therein lies the opportunity. The more something is a science, the less opportunity there is, just so you know. Right? The more you can go and put a formula to it, the less money you're going to make. So you got to go do your research, get the lists together, which you can find somewhere, I'm sure. And then you assign what the hype level is against those. That's how you're going to be able to predict which of these protocols is going to do the best over the next month. So NEO, this is obvious. It'll probably keep going up because there's plenty more NEO ICOs coming out. And just so that you guys know what I'm talking about when I say protocols, protocol layers, it's like the foundation of the network. It powers the entire network. So it's hard to describe this if you don't understand the tech, But on the internet, I mean, the internet itself could be considered a network on some level protocol, but things like TCP/IP, which powers a lot of the traffic, the generation of traffic, and the network of the traffic, all SMTP to a certain extent for email, things like that. Protocol layers are typically the coins that are in like the top 30, give or take, just as the easy guide. So when you go through this, you can see Bitcoin isn't really a protocol layer as much as it's a little different because you need a secondary layer on top of it, like Counterparty or Rootstock or something like that, to be able to handle the volume. But things like Ethereum are, Cardano is, NEM is, Neo is, Stellar is, IOTA is, EOS is. Like all of these are protocol layers. And the key is which one is driving people to use that protocol as much as possible. And right now, ICOs are the big use case, which is a little sketchy because a lot of ICOs are not valuable, which is why it gets a bad rap. But eventually, one of these ICOs is going to turn into, I should say, ICOs is the crowd token generation event. The ICO is going to empower one of these coins, one of these companies, one of these utility tokens that's actually going to become a very viable product and use case, in which case it will continue to drive that network on top of whatever platform that is. So if the killer app is built on Ethereum is probably going to do very well. If it's built on Cardano is going to do really well. Same with Neo or Stellar or EOS or IOTA or any of these. And so what you're really, betting on with these protocol layers is not necessarily the ICO volume that's driving short-term gains. There's an opportunity there, obviously. But from a long-term standpoint, which of these is going to be the one that's the biggest network, that has the most winning companies, winning coins on top of it? And right now, Ethereum is getting a lot of the attention because they've got a head start. They've got Coinbase is very bullish on Ethereum. And so they have a lot of people building on top of Ethereum. But that's why you're seeing things like Cardano and Neo. And I mean, you're seeing all of these companies start to come up, and they all have different pros and cons. And that's why your research is so powerful. So for you guys, short term, look at something like Neo. I mean, I mentioned Neo a couple weeks ago as a good buy for the year because it's a Chinese coin and because it's a platform. Same thing is true for a lot of these. Qtum's got a lot of ICOs coming out. So I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happened with Qtum. And Stratus actually has some ICOs coming out. Stratus starting to get some price action. So check it out. Right? This is a really good situation where it is do your own research, and you can bet on it accordingly. Now, back to the news world. South Korea was in the news last week because there was a lot of, not misinformation, but a lot of confusing information about what they were doing, about exchanges and the unsolicited raids that happened. And it seems like they're coming back out and saying that they're going to give exchanges a very close look. They're going to make sure that things are happening kosher and that they're not looking to shut down anything, at least not anytime soon. In the meantime, I think there was a big petition that tried to oust the person in the office that was trying to shut this down. So this is a really good example of the larger social revolutions happening, which is what I believe crypto is really all about, at least the next 2 years, is that crypto is just a way for people to get power that is a revolt against the system. And it happening through things like making a lot of money or building peer-to-peer opportunities or creating decentralized applications or whatever it may be. But this is a good example. I mean, the people, an overwhelming majority of people signed a petition to oust the person in charge who wanted to regulate and shut down the exchanges. And I don't think either one's right or wrong in this case. I'm not taking sides, but it is an interest. This is the kind of stuff that you want to be watching from a macro standpoint, because power and money are very closely aligned, and typically power follows money. and we'll see how that plays out with South Korea, and also as it plays out with places like Russia, which are starting to potentially issue a national cryptocurrency, a crypto ruble or whatever they're calling it. Right? This is a global thing, and it's all about power. I mean, it has the disguise right now that it's about money. It's called cryptocurrency cleverly because for whatever reason, but this is not about money. This is about power. This is about social and economic power and influence in a country and in the world. And that's what this is really all going to be about. So, very exciting stuff. Using ad blocker. I should turn this off. Let me see. Don't run this page. All right, that's better. I'm going to start using the Brave browser. So I thought this was interesting, not because I think that this is going to necessarily happen, but because this is a really compelling story for people. And so the story is, get ready for an explosion in Bitcoin as Wall Streeters spend their bonus checks. We've been talking about this for about a month and a half. This week is when a lot of people on Wall Street are going to be getting their bonus checks from the year before. And often those bonus checks can be very large. That's why you work at a Wall Street bank often, or investment bank, I should say. You know, you might make a couple $100,000, but you might get a 7-figure check if you did well. Banks crushed it last year. There's no reason why a lot of them shouldn't make a lot of money. And the way it works is that when you work at a bank like that, an investment bank, there's a trading desk, and it depends where you are in the bank, but you have the bank money and the fund money within the bank. And then you also have your own private funds. And often one of the perks of working there is that you could trade your own private funds like within the same, like you can follow the same trades that the bank is following to a certain extent. There's a lot of rules to this, but that's what you hear a lot of people talk about. Similarly, a lot of the private money, personal money, it does not have to impact the bank, right? So people who are working these banks, they may be getting memos on Mondays saying you cannot invest in cryptocurrency with our money. We cannot have this on a balance sheet. This was not part of our policies. These people have all this money and they're looking at themselves and saying, I want to be in the crypto world. So they go off, after work, go sign up for Gemini or GDAX or Coinbase, whatever, and they go buy crypto on their own. And so the thesis, especially at the Digital Currency Group, DCG, which is one of the biggest funds, conglomerates in the space, they're making a thesis that the bonuses are going to come in and people are going to dump those bonuses into crypto. Now, I actually think that's an interesting thesis for the most part. The question is, are they just going to go pay retail for it, right? Is it a 26-year-old young investment banker who just got a $200,000 check? Is he or she just going to go onto GDAX and do limit orders and buy a Bitcoin? Or are they going to go to altcoins? Are they going to wait? Are they going to, how are they going to play this? And that's the big question. But here's how this matters to you. When I talk about how stories drive everything in prices in crypto right now, it drives everything because none of us really use crypto on a day-to-day basis yet. This is a very good story for people who have been watching Bitcoin for the past month or two and are like, is this ever going to come back? Are we at the top? Are we in a bubble? What's going on? And there's this pent-up demand for buying activity, at least on the big coins. There's a pent-up demand for the institutional side. And so, especially the Digital Currency Group, but just in general, there is a big impetus to be able to create stories that get more money into Bitcoin. It just gets more money into the system. And so when you can create a story that people on Wall Street or people in the finance world understand, that gives them a reason to press the buy button on Bitcoin. Whether or not this is actually what's going to happen is irrelevant in my perspective. I just if this if will this strong is this strong enough to become a self-fulfilling prophecy? I think the answer is yes. I think that people will spend some bonuses, but more importantly, I think that people will read this headline and be able to say to themselves, you know what? If I was 28 and I was still working at the trading desk as an investment banker, I would probably do the same thing. Or at least they could understand it. And you can see this from the share count. That's a very high share count for an article like this. So this is the kind of stuff you want to watch, not because whether or not it's true or not, but it's like, is this something that people who are skeptical will flip them over to being buyers? And if the answer is yes, that's bullish. If the answer is no, you're going to see more of this. All right. Last article. I thought this was super interesting, especially I've been personally getting more and more interested in this idea of digital collectibles, digital art, things like that. Over the weekend, there was a art event in New York City called Rare.af. I'll let you guys do the math on that one. And it's all about having scarce digital collectible artwork. We talked about this, remember, in my 2018 small cap picks. One of my picks was Pepe Cash, based on this exact idea. And what's super interesting is that a couple people that I know went to this, were closely involved in this, and it wasn't just a bunch of people that were super into the crypto world. This was Sotheby's. This was a lot of the big art buyers in New York City. I mean, these are real heavy hitting people. And across the board, everyone who was there, who I talked to, said that the hype was off the charts. Massive amount of demand for this new idea of being able to create scarce digital assets, collectibles. That could be artwork, that could be cards, it could be anything. And they set some new records on the the auction, right? Like 30 some odd $1,000 for some of them, from the rarest pieces of artwork in the crypto world. And so this is different than something like CryptoKitties. This is not a game. It's like taking artwork and making it scarce and being able to prove that scarcity on the blockchain. So instead of being able to prove that you have the authentic Monet, you can prove that you have the authentic whatever by showing that you own the asset on the blockchain. And so this, in my opinion, is a super interesting niche market. As we talked about last week, riches are in the niches. Do not underestimate that truth in price action and the size of the market can get. If the art market gets excited about cryptocurrency and moves into cryptocurrency as a way to prove scarcity, better than having to do it as they do now, which is what it is, but it could obviously be improved. This is going to be super interesting. I think scarcity will continue to be a very, very big market over the next 3 to 5 years. Definitely this year, but like for long term, it'll never go out of style to bet on things being scarce. Human beings will always pay more money for something that other people do not have. It's just how it will always be. So this was super interesting. I'll link this up. And it was really interesting to me that the New York Times was there, that Sotheby's was there, that a lot of big names in New York City were there, as well as a lot of crypto developers. I think that's just super cool. I like seeing these blends of the world and seeing real use cases that that are profitable for a lot of us. So check it out. I'll link this up below. You can go check it out. So in the meantime, we'll watch this as one thing to keep in mind too. It is a national holiday in the United States, meaning the banks are not going to be open to move a lot of the money. And not all the banks. Some should say, double check, but a lot of people don't have to go to work today. So tomorrow's when you're going to see a lot of money flowing into the market. Today you're going to see whatever you see. It's going to be like a regular day on the markets. But keep your eyes open for tomorrow. I'm heading to a conference all day today. So excited to see it. All right, guys. Have a great day. Catch you later. Peace out.